minute to make sure that we've got the live stream. And I just got a notice that this meeting is being live streamed. So we can start the public meeting. And I will pass it over to Derek to kick us off.
All right. So, good morning, everybody, and good morning, everybody joining us on YouTube. In the interest of time, I would like to introduce the board of directors. So, with us today, we have Omar Farouk, a government appointee. We have Carlos Sicoli, government appointee. Yes, sorry, I had a moment, Carlo, and I was kind of going, wait, okay. Grażyna Sebzinska, a elected member. Mark Priddle, our newest government appointee. Welcome, Mark. Steve Kinsella, our another government appointee. Congratulations on your reappointment, sir. It's nice to have you with us. We also have Tanya Namabin. You think I would get that name proper by the end of this, but I don't. Elected member. Alicia Munion, another public appointee, and Paul Imola, our elected board member. Myself, Derek Summers, I am also an elected board member. Also joining us today, we have our registrar, Fazal Khan, our deputy registrar and in-house legal counsel, Amy Stein, and our facilitator, Karen Elkin. And those are the faces in your camera right now. We have regrets from Samir Mohera, Kevin Cloutier, and Carlos Pacheco. Okay, so let's jump into our land acknowledgement point. I would like to acknowledge that although this meeting is taking place virtually, the College of Opticians of Ontario operates on the traditional lands of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee people, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. The College of Opticians of Ontario acknowledges and respects that these lands are now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who continue to experience the impact of colonization. The College of Opticians of Ontario also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. It is with the utmost respect and humility that we at the College of Opticians of Ontario are grateful to live and to work on these lands and are committed to educating ourselves in areas of cultural safety and humility in the delivery of equitable healthcare in Ontario. So with that, I would also like to welcome everybody joining us at home and to remind registrants that they can use this as self-directed hours for their portfolios. So I'm going to go hand the meeting back over to Karen now, and Karen, take it away.
Wonderful. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you all. Just a couple of reminders about how we operate when we're in an online meeting. Please stay on mute unless you are speaking, just to prevent background noise from getting in the way. When you do wish to speak, please use your virtual hand. So the little raise hand tool makes sure I can keep track of the order in which people want to speak. And lastly, when we are going to be making some more complex decisions, of course, we want to reach consensus. So we will have conversations that lead us to that, and we will use what's called the high five when a final decision is on the table to get a read on where people are at 1 to 5 on the decision, to let us know if more discussion is needed before we go to a motion. So that should cover that. And now, Derek, you can move on to the conflict of interest declaration.
Perfect. Thank you, Karen. So I can confirm that all board members attending the meeting today completed their pre-meeting conflict of interest declaration. I will now also ask whether there are any conflicts to declare with respect to any items on today's agenda. Seeing none. Excellent. So let's move on.
All right, so you can move to the adoption of the agenda.
Perfect. Everybody's had a chance to read it. It's been posted for a bit. Does anybody feel the need to make any amendments to the agenda? Again, not seeing anything. Can I have somebody make me a motion to approve the agenda? Go with Alicia as my first, Carlo as my second, all in favor. Fantastic. That passes. So next we're going to move on to the minutes. Everybody's had an opportunity to review the minutes. Does anybody have any amendments they'd like to see made to the minutes at all? Not seeing any. All right. Can somebody make me the motion to approve the minutes? Go with Regina, and my seconder is Tanya. And before I call for a vote, remember, if you were not present for this particular meeting, just abstain. Could I have all in favor? Excellent. And Mark, you're abstaining for that. Thank you so much. And that passes.
All right.
Okay.
We're now going to move to the board financial report. So Blessing Adebimpe, our staff accountant, please begin your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'll take Derek's initiative. I'll try not to be boring with the numbers. I will try to also be as fast as possible without being too fast. I will be presenting this financial variance report to the board for the period ending June 30th for review and approval. This variance report summarizes year-to-date revenue and expenses versus the annual budget and prior year and helps assess if financial activity is
Turn it on your
track.
speaker.
Sorry?
Not to stress, Blessing. We just
You can
muted one of the
continue.
cameras.
Okay, that's all right. Financial variance explanations are provided for significant deviations with color codes using green for trending well, orange for trending with caution, and red for trending poorly. Total revenue to date for the college is at $3,759,087 with a variance of $101,576, representing 3% over the budget. Investment income from GICs are to be realized in October this year and will be reported by the fourth quarter report. Board and committee expenses are currently sitting at $69,938 with a variance of negative $115,090 with 60% under budget. Many Q2 expenses are submitted in Q3, so they are not reflected in this report, and eventually to track down to zero by the end of the year. Operations and admin expenses are currently sitting at $1,559,469 with a variance of negative $1,920,050, 55% under budget, which is trending well. Fixed costs such as rent and salaries are expected to trend at about 50% here, which it is. Other expenses vary seasonally but are trending as anticipated based on historical patterns. However, a few things that are worthy to note include the general expenses, which mainly represent merchant fees, which is trending higher than expected due to renewal deadline extension to January 15. Most of the merchant expenses are usually incurred in December, November for in prior years, but because of the extension, we have some a bit about 40% of the expense falling in January, February this year. So we're monitoring closely, but based on the projections, we're expected to hit over budget of 10%. Quality assurance cost is currently 92% under budget due to timing of peer and practice assessment, which has just begun in May. And as a result, all the expenses reflected in this only reflects about 1 month of the expense. And the actual cost should show up in the Q3 and Q4 reports.
Blessing,
Yes.
can I just break in for a moment? Would you mind expanding the size of the screen so we can read it? It's a little bit small.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. Is this fine? Is it better now?
Does that look better to the group? Derek, your hand is up. Was it about the same thing? No, it's about something else? Okay. Derek.
Just in relation, Blessing, to the general operational where it's trending a little bit low and we're watching and monitoring it.
Yes.
Am I correct in my thinking that that is because it's due to the shift in timelines, that is a this year variance, and going forward, we'll know how to properly budget for it?
Yes, definitely. So we're going to be able to see how the shift affects the numbers, and then we can properly budget for it this year and carry it properly.
Thank you, Blessing.
No problem. Can everyone see it better now?
It is more clear. Yes.
Okay. So strategic planning cost is currently 41% under budget. all the costs relating to this has been expensed. However, some costs were expensed in the prior fiscal year, and we had lower attendance than expected, as we had some no-shows. And then we also did, based on the budget last year, we had comparison figure. We picked the off-season bookings, which saved us some amount of money. However, factoring in all unsubmitted honorarius and prior year, we have concluded that the budget is actually 20% under and not 41%. I will be submitting this. I'll be presenting this to the board now for approval of the financial report. I'll be recommending the board approve the financial report for the period ending June 30. Thank you.
Thank you. So turning it over to the board for any questions. This is your opportunity to ask some questions, get some clarity on things. So I'll take a moment to do that before we go to the motion. I'm not seeing any hands, so I'll ask one more time. Okay, I guess it's clear. So thank you, Blessing. And Derek, you can go to the motion.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you, Blessing, for your report. Fulsome and thorough as always. All right, so everybody, we need somebody to make a motion to approve the financial variance report. Steve, you'll be my first. Mark, you'll be my seconder. Thank you, Mark. All in favor? And that passes as well. So from here, we're going to go into the appointment of the auditor for 2025. And I believe I have a briefing note coming up on the shared. Thank you, Emma. All right. And if we can make that bigger, because I have my own copy, but you guys can't possibly see that from there. So as set out in the bylaws, the board is responsible for the appointment of the auditor for the following year. Gurul Gayat was the college's auditor for the fiscal years of 2019 to 2024. Previously, Peter Sevitt, Principal Sevitt and Associates, functioned as the college auditor beginning in 2002. In 2019, the firm merged with Gurul Gayat. For consideration, at the September meeting, the Finance Committee reviewed and discussed the completed auditor assessment tool, which included comments received via surveys completed by both the administrative team and the executive committee in the role as Finance Committee. Audit quality indicators, including the auditor's independence, objectivity, level of professional skepticism. It's a great phrase, professional skepticism. The quality of the engagement team, communications with the board and staff, and the overall quality of service were all addressed in detail. The Finance Committee sought input from the staff team regarding the performance of the auditor as far as responsiveness and the quality of the work. The committee also inquired about whether it would be best practice to have change of auditor every few years to bring a fresh perspective. The administrative team indicated that it was now best practice to engage in regular assessments of the audit firm, which has been the college's practice for the past 6 years. After completing the review, the Finance Committee agreed that there was sufficient information to conclude and recommend that the auditor be reappointed for the following fiscal year audit. As far as public interest considerations, the board has recognized the importance of fiscal and financial responsibility in ensuring that it carries out its mandate to regulate the profession in the public interest. The annual auditor assessment tool was adopted for the board to be able to make an informed decision about appointing an auditor who will support the board in carrying out its obligation to produce an annual audited financial statement. From a diversity, equity, and inclusion considerations, the committee did not identify any concerns with the current auditor and will preclude the board's commitment to that would preclude the board's commitment to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Risk management considerations, the board is responsible for appointing an auditor that will demonstrate competence, independence, and objectivity. The auditor assessment tool utilized by the Finance Committee provides a way for the committee to assess the auditor's performance objectively prior to making its recommendation to the board. So with all of that being said, the Finance Committee is recommending that the board approve Gurul Gayat as the auditor for the 2025 fiscal year. And I'll open the floor to questions or comments from the board. All right, we got an oil painting going on. Shake your heads at least, guys. There we go. Perfect. All right. So, Blessing, I think we're going to be off the hook on this one. I don't think we're going to have answer a lot of questions on it. So let's go into, I need someone to make the motion to approve Gruel Guyette as the auditor for 2025. Grugina, thank you for firsting it. Carlos, thank you for seconding it. All in favor? Fantastic. That passes. All righty. So now we don't have any breaks scheduled today, and I'm stealing Karen's thunder, but I'm on a roll. So does anybody need a bio break for about 5 minutes or so, and 5, 10 minutes, and we'll come back, or do you want to keep going, like just tear through it? I'm seeing some nods at the bio break. Yeah, okay, we're gonna do a bio break. Steve, I saw you tear through it, but unfortunately, bladders win, and we're all gonna pause for a little bit. Please remember to turn your cameras off, turn yourself on mute. We will continue to stream through the process.
All right. So
All
we will
right.
see you in, did we agree 5 minutes? Okay, we'll see you in 5. All right. Welcome back, everyone, from our little impromptu break. We're going to bring Elliot Borens in from the waiting room in a few minutes. But before we get to that, we are now going to move on to the potential approval of the refresher program and around registration policies. And Derek is going to walk us through the briefing notes.
So we're, can I be heard? Yes, I'm not on mute. Perfect. So I'm gonna take my chair hat off and put my registration chair hat on, and we're gonna present to you the briefing note on the potential approval for the refresher program. So a little bit of background. The amendments to the College of Opticians of Ontario's registration regulation came into effect on July 1st, 2024, and the new regulation stated that individuals who fall into one of the following three categories must complete a refresher program in order to maintain, transfer to, or be granted a certificate of registration with the college as a registered optician. So the three areas were registered opticians who do not meet the current currency requirements, registrants wishing to change from the inactive class to a registered optician class, and intern opticians who have not completed their opticianry program or the examinations within 18 months of the date of their application. So the registration committee reviewed a proposed refresher program, which is your Appendix A, and I promise you I'm not reading it, the whole thing, at their May 12th, 2025 meeting. And upon review and discussion, the committee agreed that it was important to seek feedback from registrants. So the proposed refresher program was posted on the college's consultations webpage, along with an explanatory note and a survey link for the feedback to be provided. The proposed model was also circulated via e-blast to registrants, registered opticians, inactive opticians, intern opticians on July 25th, 2025. Individuals were invited to answer survey questions and provide any comments by 11:59 p.m. August 24th, 2025, so the full 31 days. And the invitation was also extended to suspended opticians. So we ended up with a total of 42 responses, and a summary of the survey results together with the comments that were received is attached for the board's review in Appendix B. So the stakeholder feedback, 29 of those who completed the survey identified as registered opticians. Other respondents included 12 inactive opticians and one who identified as other, an intern optician. When asked what the overall opinion of the proposed refresher program was, 30 respondents thought it was a good idea, 5 disliked it, 5 would like changes, and 2 responses fell in the other bucket. We've included some of the comments. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but the majority of the respondents, 26 of the group, so 61%, 61.9%, felt that the proposed refresher program is fair and reasonable. 8 or 19% were unsure. Another 19% indicated no. Respondents were encouraged to provide comments if they believe that the proposed refresher program is unfair or unreasonable, and those comments are also included for you to review, which I assume everybody has had a chance to do. 69.23% of the respondents agreed that the topics covered in refresher level 1 are appropriate for those looking to return to the registered optician class from an active status after a short period of under 3 years. 7.69% were unsure. Respondents who disagreed were asked what the changes were made. Those comments have been included as well. And 67.57% of respondents agreed that the topics covered in Refresher 2 were appropriate for those looking to return to registered optician class from inactive between 3 to 6 years. Again, 21% unsure, and the respondents who disagreed were asked what changes, and those comments have been included. And finally, 65.71% agreed that the topics covered in refresher level 3 were appropriate for those looking to return to registered optician class from inactive after 6 to 10 years. 20% were unsure, and the respondents who disagreed were asked what changes, and those have been included as well. The majority of the respondents, 57.14%, think the cost of the proposed refresher program is fair and reasonable. 25% were unsure, and those who disagreed, we've included their comments as well. So the committee inquired, when we looked at reviewing this, the committee inquired as to whether the response rate was typical for a stakeholder circulation, and noted that it seemed low. The college staff noted that the response rate was lower than expected, and that it may be partially due to registrants not grasping how they may be affected by the program, and that responses also tended to be lower in the summer. The concerns that were raised by the feedback have been addressed. Do we want me to read through that, or has everybody had a chance to review those responses? Okay, nobody's saying, waving at me to say yes. So suffice to say that I think every comment and response has been responded to, and there is something in all of the way through. So the committee felt it very important that the board be shown that and given that clarity and transparency to see where that all stands for them. So for consideration, as noted above, the new regulation requires the college to create a refresher program in order to maintain, transfer to, or be granted a certificate of registration with the college as a registered optician. Based on the feedback received, the board is asked to consider whether they would like to approve the proposed refresher program. The public interest considerations, the majority of the respondents supported the proposed refresher program and its aim at making sure that if a registrant is listed as entitled to practice on the public registrar, the public can trust in the optician's skills and knowledge are current. Diversity, equity, and inclusion considerations. Respondents did not identify any accessibility issues with the proposed refresher programs. 54% roughly didn't foresee any challenges in completing the proposed program. 11.5% were indicated they foresaw challenges, and 34% were unsure. Those who foresaw challenges were asked to elaborate, and the comments included the comments that you see below, which included babysitting and cost of travel. However, the refresher program is on demand and can be completed on the registrant's schedule from wherever location they wish, as it is virtual. And the program is priced at cost recovery levels to ensure accessibility, and is free for registrants out of practice more than 3 years. The cost is significantly reduced, as under the previous regulation, any individual who was out of practice for less than 3 years automatically had to undergo a competency gap analysis at the cost of approximately $700. So it is actually a little bit less than where we've been previously. Risk management. From a risk management perspective, the public protection remains at the forefront of this proposed refresher program. The program will help ensure that registrants who are looking to return to active practice are current in their knowledge. The tiered refresher program is designed so that the longer the registrant is away from practice, the more topics they would need to familiarize themselves with. The refresher program is not designed to be an income generating stream, but a program to assist registrants in maintaining their professional knowledge. Also would like to add in there, I mean, it is also based, I mean, if you've got the hours from before you became inactive within that time period, or if you've been practicing out of province, those hours in good standing, those hours are recognized as well. So I mean, it's kind of a very specific group that this is applying to. So what we're asking right now is that the board approve the proposed refresher program for implementation. So I will open it up to questions for myself. I have Amy here, who is familiar with the program as well. Stephanie's on if we really need to go deep into this.
Okay.
And yeah, Karen, I'll hand it to you.
Thank you. I see Tanya.
I think a comment and a question. So I was pleased to see that you have record keeping throughout, because I think it really aligns with some trends that we're seeing throughout the quality assurance program. And so really happy that we have a focus on that in this refresher program. And then you did just kind of speak to this, Derek, but I did notice throughout the comments, some people were bringing up kind of like a practical component. So it does seem like the committee did consider this when you were kind of outlining the refresher program, but anything else that you could add to that?
The practical component as in, are we
Well,
talking
just-
about?
Sorry, it just seemed like some of the respondents were wondering if like we were going to test or kind of have a practical component to this. I didn't know if it wasn't feasible to have a practical component in the refresher program or.
So I think the philosophy to this is we're talking about professionals who have passed their national exams and are just that, professionals. I don't think there are circumstances where, you know, you've let your license lapse and you would have to follow the whole process again, but I don't think that's what this was designed to do. A refresher program is designed to ensure that the quality of your care to the public is where it needs to be, and I think that's what the refresher program was set to do. So I do not believe that there is a practical component. I will turn to Amy to see if there's any specific instances where a practical component would be necessary, but I'm not sure.
So where that can potentially come in under what's being proposed is for people who are at the sort of top tier, which would apply to those that have been away from practice for 10 years or more, they would be required to undergo a competency gap analysis. And coming out of that CGA process, there are bridging modules that could be assigned. And again, if people are unsuccessful and not able to actually demonstrate that they can pass those bridging modules, then the committee has the discretion to require other types of refreshing. And technically the same would go for the lower tiers, because essentially the refresher program, the modules that are being proposed, because they're the contact lens and eyeglass ones are modeled off of the bridging program that NACOR has developed. If people are not able to successfully complete those modules, they would need to come to the committee for assignment of what other components they would need to do in order to be able to return to practice. So it's built in that sense, but as a general requirement, the difficulty would likely be because this is meant to provide a more expedient pathway. And to, you know, add practical components onto that could mean, you know, a significant delay in people being able to return to practice. So the committee was really wanting to balance those factors to say, you know, we're not trying to create barriers that aren't necessary. It's just what is required to protect the public. So essentially, these modules are being used that if you're able to be successful with these modules, the committee feels that's enough to satisfy it, that you're practice ready.
Thank you both, Derek and Amy. That provides lots of clarity, and knowing that in the background, hopefully for the registrants that responded that had that kind of maybe some questions about the practical components, that it is built in there if it's needed for anyone, especially in that really high tier. Thank you for that.
Okay. Any other general comments or questions about the policy where it stands? Yes, Mark.
Yeah, so just a bit of a comment from an outsider. In other regulatory bodies have been involved, and there is no currency requirements for re-entering, and that has been a problem. There has been a disciplining case for geoscientists who weren't current. As far as the cash grab, if it's on a cost recovery basis, it can't really be considered a cash grab. And also the comment about I'm still doing my CE, that doesn't necessarily keep you current. You can be doing a CE or CPD and not necessarily keep up to speed in many professions from what I've seen. So I think it's I'm all for it.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you,
You're
Mark.
getting some nods of agreement there. So just to be more specific, you know, does the board agree with the public interest considerations? Or is there any other comments or points that need to be considered there in public interest? No? How about DEI? I think Derek addressed the issue of accessibility of the test, but there were some other comments about that in the report from some people. So are we good with the DEI? I'm seeing nods. Okay. And risk management. Anything else that anyone wants to add? Okay. So, you know, given this, I think, Derek, you're probably safe to move right to your motion.
Perfect. All right. So switching hats again. Can I have somebody make the motion to approve the proposed refresher program? Tanya, my firster, Grzina, my seconder, all in favor? And that passes. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. And great work to the registration committee. Yeah, good work, team. All right.
I think Fuzzle wants to break in here.
Yes, just for a second. Thanks. Appreciate that has passed. We needed to have something in place. And this is sort of a first step. One thing to point out further to Mark's comment about cost recovery is also on top of that, these bridging modules are based on the national competencies, and really the cost is being paid directly to NACOR for processing those. Sorry, for processing. Wow. The other thing is also at this point, now that we have something in place, um, it's actually open to the open market also to other continuing education providers or other players in the education space, even the schools, if they want to create something that meets these requirements. And so the opportunity lies there for other more cost-effective offerings and more variety. But we just needed to build something in the absence of something so that we have something for our registrants who are making their way back, so that there is no barrier to reentry. So at this point forward, we do, Peggy is our practice advisor, is meeting with the quality assurance providers, I think in the next couple of weeks. We're hosting them at our office as we do annually to meet with them, and we'll be talking a bit about this program and hopefully turning it to them to put their minds to as well. So hopefully the offerings variety will increase over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we can now move on to the board policy review and updates. We're going to bring Elliot into the meeting. Okay. Welcome, Elliot. Thanks for joining. So Elliot, if you're ready, it's over to you to present the board policy review and updates.
Thank you very much. So we have a few items for the governance committee today. As you know, the policy governance manual has a number of policies, and one of the responsibilities of us on the governance committee is to regularly review all of the policies and or specific policies according to the review schedule. At each of the board meetings, the governance committee will bring forward some policies that are scheduled for review as per this schedule. So this quarter, there's actually 4 that are up for review. We've got the investment policy, the delegation to the registrar CEO, the board strategic agenda and work plan policy, and the board monitoring system policy. So the first one we're going to look at is the investment policy. Now, this is designed to outline the board's operational boundaries and risk tolerances for the registrar CEO regarding the management of the college's investments. The board's role with respect to this policy is one of oversight, as it has delegated responsibility for responsibility has been delegated for investing to the registrar CEO. Now, no updates are being proposed to this policy at this time, as it appears that it remains relevant to meet the board's needs. It was first approved in October of 2018 and last reviewed in December of 2023.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor to discussion. Does anybody have any questions for Elliot on this policy? I am not seeing any hands. So do we have a consensus? Let's do a high five for consensus on the amendment here. Okay, I think we're good to go.
Great. So next, we're going to turn to the delegation of the Registrar CEO policy. And the purpose of this one is to clarify that the board is responsible for establishing the college's strategic outcomes and for delegating authority to the Registrar CEO to achieve those strategic outcomes. Amendments to the policy are proposed to align with the modified policy governance model that the COO has chosen to adopt, under which there is one general policy in the strategic outcomes category that mirrors the COO's strategic plan. It was first approved in December of 17 and last reviewed in October of 21. So it's well due for the review. Now, I do want to highlight to the public that the public interest and risk management considerations for the item. The amendments that are proposed to the policy align with the established policy governance model, which clearly instructs the registrar CEO to achieve certain strategic outcomes that are aligned with the college's public interest mandate. So it does create a clear, accountable, and structured governance approach. Now over to you, Karen.
Yeah. So any questions on around the proposed changes to this policy? Not seeing any, Elliot. I think you're okay to continue.
2 for 2. Okay, let's see if we can go 3 for 3. So we've got moving on, we'll look at the board strategic agenda work plan policy. This is designed to establish a clear framework and process for the board to develop its annual work plan and to monitor its progress throughout the year. Amendments to the policy are proposed to simplify the terminology of the policy title, renaming it to the Board Annual Work Plan Policy. The policy was first approved in December of 2018 and last reviewed in December of 22. And I believe it's on the screen now.
Okay, and are there any amendments to this one, Elliot?
I do. Let me see here. I believe the only changes are just reflected on the screen.
Okay. Okay, great. So any questions or comments on the governance process policy? All right, 3 for 3, Elliot. Let's see what happens.
We're looking good.
Woohoo.
Okay, let's see if we can do 4. So finally, and we're going to review the board monitoring system policy. The policy is designed to outline the rationale, process, and mechanisms that the board uses to monitor the registrar CEO's organizational achievement of results, so the strategic outcomes policy, within operational risk boundaries, operational limitations policies. The amendments to this policy are proposed to align with changes made to the registrar CEO's performance evaluation and compensation process policy, which were approved by the board in October of 23. Changes include codifying a process for evaluating the monitoring reports of the registrar CEO delivers throughout the year for the purposes of the annual review. Now, this policy was approved first in December 19 and last reviewed in October of 22. I'd like to highlight the public interest and risk management considerations for the item. The amendments to this policy do align with the current process for evaluating the registrar CEO's performance, which includes the review of monitoring reports, regular and thorough evaluations of the registrar CEO's performance, as it's a key aspect of the board fulfilling its duty to govern the college in the public's interest.
Okay, so once more, any questions with regards to the proposed changes to this policy? Derek, you came off mute. Did you have a comment here or no? Okay. All right, so I think we're good to go then, Elliot. So thank you very much for your presentations. Derek, you can go to the motions if you're ready.
So just before I go to a motion, I've observed that, I know that we do a regular review of this process of these policies, and I think that's a fantastic idea. And I just want to have a question for Amy. Amy, we've seen a lot of these come through, and there's typically, no changes or just, very, very minimal typeset changes. Should we be doing more? I want to make sure that as a board, we're doing our proper due diligence with these and really being reflexive.
Sure, thanks, Derek. I think actually what we're seeing now is kind of by design, right? Because the board started this process of a governance overhaul back in around 2017 is when some of these policies started to be sort of revamped and approved under a new model, and this monitoring and review schedule was put in place. So you've gone through a couple of cycles now, and the board's sort of motivation for all of this was to modernize your governance program, but also to make sure that you've got this book of policies. You don't want them gathering dust. They need to be looked at from time to time, make sure they're still relevant. And it's okay if they're exactly what you still need. The idea wasn't necessarily for this to be something that's continually changing and shifting, because then the organization wouldn't be able to get into a flow. And certainly it's not intended as any type of make work project. So, I think what the way it's set up, because the governance committee gets to spend a bit more time typically before it comes to the board, thinking about and considering whether there's anything that needs to change, anything that's changed with our practices. So by the time things come to you, they've had a pretty thorough look, and it means that there's nothing gathering dust. You're checking in from time to time. So I think this is how the system is supposed to work, and by all means, that doesn't mean these policies need to stay the same forever, but it's good that they're being looked at, and the board has been doing some great work on that.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy. As I said, it's just that perspective when you're doing it, and it's kind of like, there's no questions, there's no changes. So I really do appreciate that feedback. So with that,
Hold on,
assuming,
Fazel's hand is up, Derek.
of course it is.
Give him a moment.
Hi,
Thank you.
Fazel.
Hello. So just a quick question, kind of a toggle between you and Amy. Some of the more rinse and repeat policies, they're based on a repeating schedule. Is it a possibility of extending the review window slightly? If we look at some policies as not needing regular updates?
That's entirely in the board's hands. So if the board would like to direct the governance committee to look at that schedule again and perhaps bring forward some suggestions, that is something that the board can do.
Amy, what is the schedule right now?
So it varies depending on the policy. So it's in the governance manual. Policies are looked at least every 3 years. There are some policies that it's on a 4 or 5 year schedule because they were identified as ones that are kind of more foundational and not likely to need as regular review. So there's some variation there, and certainly there's an opportunity to extend, shorten, and make it as unique to each policy as the board feels is appropriate.
So let me put it out to the board that I've got in front of me. Are you happy with the current cycling, or would you like to send this back to governance to get their input on what they feel could be either changed, either lengthened or sped up, just as a bit of a review of the cycling process? Does that appeal? Tanya's nodding thumbs up. Okay, so I'm going to put it up for a high five for consensus that we send this back to governance to review and see if anything could be, come back with the results on the subject. I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, Carla, you had me worried. I was wondering what we were going to talk about there for a moment. Thank you. All right, so Elliot, if you wouldn't mind, you heard the conversation. Love to have you guys take a look at things. You're doing a great job, and just see if there's anything that could be moved either longer or shorter if it needs it, just to do that little exercise for us, if you could. Come back to the next.
Yeah, so we can definitely have a look at that. I'll be in touch with Amy to review all of the items, kind of, and see if we can triage some to more important, more pressing, less pressing, and reorganize that schedule. The one thing I do want to give you a heads up is what will likely happen is that when we do the reviews, it may tend to cluster. So we may have like, if we say, oh, we can put this one off for 2 years, or oh, we can put this one off for 1 year. My only fear is that we're going to have a mega meeting where it'll be like 36 items that are set for renewal. So we're just going to have to do it a little. We'll have to keep in mind spreading them out evenly to review, but also making it make sense. So we'll get you something though.
I hear you, Elliot, and I appreciate that. You guys are doing a fantastic job. And conveniently, I know that your admin team is spectacularly good with scheduling stuff. So I have faith that with notice, they're going to make it all flow smoothly, and we can intravenous drip the coffee as we need. So we'll get you there. All right. But thank you for such a good collection. And let me just do your motions now before I forget to completely do those.
Yeah.
All right. So board, can I have somebody make the motion that the governance committee recommends that no board changes be made, no changes be made to the investment policy? Carlo, thank you. Alicia, seconder, all in favor? Passing, perfect. The second motion is that the board approve the proposed changes to the delegation to the registrar, CEO, the board strategic agenda work plan policy, and the board monitoring system policy. Can I get Georgina? Thank you. And seconder, Steve, thank you. All in favor? Fantastic. All right. Elliot, I think you're on deck again.
Yep. I think I've got some code of conduct for directors and committee members for you. Okay, so as it's the 2025 meeting, the committee carried out a scheduled content review of the code of conduct for directors and committee members to determine if any amendments were necessary. The code of conduct is set out in Schedule D of the college's bylaws, and it's in place to ensure that the directors and committee members perform their duties in a manner that promotes the highest standard of trust and integrity. No updates are recommended by the governance committee at this time. It appears that everything remains relevant and it's fit for our purposes. The code was initially developed and approved by the board in 2008, and most recent amendment was in February 2020 on the recommendation of the governance committee as part of a broader initiative to modernize the governance structure of the college.
Okay. Before I open the floor for discussion, I'll highlight the public interest, DEI, and risk management considerations as outlined by the committee. So firstly, public interest considerations. The code outlines that board and committee members must act in alignment with the college's statutory mandate to regulate opticianry in the public interest. Members are therefore expected to recognize their fiduciary duty to prioritize the best interests of the college and the public above all other personal or professional loyalties. In terms of DEI considerations, the code sets out expectations for board and committee members to demonstrate respect for diversity and cultural humility in carrying out their role. And with regards to risk management considerations, the code helps to mitigate organizational risk by providing clear guidance on avoiding and declaring conflicts of interest, as well as appropriate social media usage. This helps to ensure that public confidence in the college is maintained and that its reputation remains protected. So I'm now going to open the floor for discussions. Do board members agree with the proposed course of action, and/or does the board have any questions or comments about the policy? Steve.
Yeah, just one question that in this day and age, with people with the different political situations going on in the world and demonstrations throughout Canada, will this code of conduct govern people showing up in support or against any different type of political views that they may have?
I will bring that back to Elliot.
I can speak to that if you
I
like.
was going to say that's an Amy question.
That's an Amy question?
Yeah.
So, you know, the code doesn't get into a lot of specifics, but it does cover that level of professionalism. And as well, you've got your social media appendix that speaks to public comments that could come back to the reputation of the college. So essentially, it's I think it's covered in the sense of being mindful that statements that are being made and everything need to stay within the realm of professionalism, and that your public statements need to be taking into account your role as a board member and how that would reflect on the college.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Any other comments or questions? Derek.
Elliot, I apologize if you said this already. How often does the code of ethics get reviewed? Code of conduct.
Which one? 6.5?
The one we just did.
I don't know the regular schedule of it, but it was last done in 2020. So I think this is one of the long ones. So it was 2008, then 2020, and I think they just kicked it down the trail as they went between 2008 and 2020, and then 2020 was a big change, and then we're there today.
So for consideration, when you take this back to governance and you do that conversation that we were just talking about before, this might be one of those ones that I think needs to happen on a very frequent basis with the constantly changing world that we live in and how treacherous that gets. I really like it as something that you guys review regularly or in a timely manner. And then I really like the fact that we review it at this board meeting in a very timely manner. And I know we all technically review it every year, but it's not a bad thing to bring up. And I will tell you that in light of what's happening in the world right now, I went through this thing with a fine-tooth comb to see if it was still applicable, and I'm proud of it, and it is. But I love the attention it got today, so I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I mean, you and me both. I also went through it with the same lens as well.
Yeah.
Just for public interest purposes, especially with, naming, shaming, doxing, and, people being unprofessional or acting professionally in the light of things, that's always at the forefront of our minds. So.
Perfect. Alrighty. So with that in mind, if no other questions or comments, and you let me get off my soapbox, I would like somebody to make me the motion that the board approve no changes to the code of conduct for the board and committee members as recommended by the governance committee. Virginia, you're up first again for me. Paul, you're my seconder for this, and all in favor? Fantastic. That is unanimous. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, Karen, I'm handing it back to you.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Elliot. We're now going to move on to the monitoring reports, starting with the strategic outcomes policy monitoring report. I'll provide a little context, and then I'll turn it over to Fazal. So just to remind everyone who's listening, the purpose of these monitoring reports is to have a system in place to periodically check in on each one of the board's governance policies to make sure that they're achieving the desired results. The monitoring process is one of the primary ways that the board exercises its risk management responsibility. The policies in the governance manual have established risk boundaries that the registrar is to operate within, and that the registrar is required to satisfy the board through these reports that the policy is being reasonably interpreted and reasonably achieved. So when the registrar brings forward a monitoring report, the board will be asked two questions. One, was the registrar's interpretation of the policy reasonable? And two, did the registrar comply with the policy as reasonably interpreted? The feedback that the board provides will inform the evaluation of the registrar's performance and, by consequence, the organization's performance. So with that, Fazal, it's over to you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So I'll set a little bit of background as we go through these reports. This is one of the more dense ones. It's about 18 or 19 pages. So what you have in front of you is basically a working copy of our strategic plan that has a number of columns added to it to help the board sort of see how we're progressing on our global strategic plan, sort of as far as are we achieving achieving our ends, the evidence to show what we're interpreting, and at some points also sort of the finances attached to those goals. So right now we're getting to the end of the cycle. 2023 to 2025 is coming to an end, and the majority of, I'm glad to say, the majority of the outcomes have been achieved. So rather than going through this line by line by line, I'm going to highlight sort of things that are 2025 specific and anything that might be an anomaly. So with that, I'm just going to take you through the document. Excuse all the paper shuffling on my end. So as we've talked about, this report's divided into 3 pillars, and this one starts off with a public pillar. So patients having access to resources and information on the role of registered opticians as healthcare providers. We've been at it since we started this program with education pieces that are on the website. There's content talking about what opticians are, who they are, and also talking about unauthorized practice, sort of what that is, where it's the absence of a regulated health professional. So we really have been stepping up our game social media wise to do short posts that are engaging on various platforms, because not everyone's going to be probably surfing the college website. And a lot of times our social media will point back to the website to get deeper information. So far to date, we've had about 22 social media posts on the role of registered opticians. Well, that's been since 2023, but again, on our social media platforms. Number 2, a reduction in the risk to patients as a result of unauthorized practice. We term that as UAP, shorthand. We love using acronyms. So the unauthorized practice program was launched in 2023 as one of our strategic focuses. As of September 2025, the college has processed about 47 unauthorized practice files. And in your table, or in the chart, you'll see a little table. Raj and the team will be speaking a little bit about this later today, but on the table, you'll see in sort of the breakdown 2023, 24, and 25, sort of how many cases we opened and closed. So there was an uptake in 2024, I think, as registrants also became a bit more aware of the program. They started reporting in more concerns and things, and obviously we've transacted them. So year to date, it seems to slow down a little bit. We had a peak of 23 reports in 24. So far as we're ending Q3 of this year, we're at about 10. Some of them are a little bit more complex cases, though, I will say. There's a few cases that are going to be resulting in seeking injunction. Luckily, it's the minority. Most have resulted in good outcomes where we've been able to work with the businesses at hand, either to get compliance or understanding, or obviously both. But in some small cases, select cases, we have had to resort to seeking a court injunction. So we have been budgeting for it accordingly, and we're not off budget in any sense there. Moving to 1.3, patient care is more inclusive and culturally safe. We continue to try to provide resources for our registrants, supporting them in their learning of this competency. To that effect, we've had a 2-part continuing education program around allyship for health professionals in collaboration with the College of Audiologists and Speech Language Pathologists. We actually have had one already, and we have another one coming up on ageism. And again, it's a collaboration with the audiologist. So there was really good reception to the first one, and it's a very cost-effective way getting up to both our registrant bases. We are going to be working with NACOR to develop hopefully a competency at the entry to practice level around culturally safe practice for healthcare practitioners. So we are going to be talking a little bit about it at our NACOR meeting coming up this fall. Likely it's going to be something that's coming in our next strategic cycle. We were hoping to tackle it here, but obviously it's not our competencies, it's the national group's competencies. And they have been going through a restructuring over the last 2 years. So I know that I think just today Jody was messaging me that they are working with the person that assists with those competencies. So I think you'll see that come to fruition in the next cycle. Okay, let's move on a little further. Jumping to 1.5. So I'm sort of jumping to any places that have got some changes. Happy to take questions about any of the chart. So 1.5, there's a sufficient number of qualified opticians to meet the needs of Ontario patients. So 1.51, public outreach and education on considering a career in opticianry. That was identified from the board that should be a push. And so to that, we have been working with NACOR to engage in sort of a marketing push through social media to promote the career in opticianry, including on a domestic level, those people who are working in the profession already, but just aren't licensed, as well as those who are international applicants who already are in the profession, but maybe want to consider joining opticianry here in Canada. So we have been working on creating sort of a social media campaign around prior learning assessment so that you're not just stuck with the typical pathways of 2 or 4 years of education through accredited bodies, but especially domestically, many provinces have pathways where they recognize practical learning experience and just have to undergo the PLAR to assess for any gaps. So we have been spending a lot of time trying to develop videos and things like that. And so there was an industry roundtable that we had this May of 2025, where we showcased some of those, what I call inventory of social media video clips and things like that, 15-second video clips, 30-second video clips, still graphics, things like that on the processes. So we're hoping to get support nationally from the various partners to help put money behind disseminating those videos to the different markets. So far that's been received very well. And that goes hand in hand with reducing unnecessary barriers for individuals seeking to enter or resume the profession. So that's 1.52. Now, in our efforts to reduce barriers, there is something we'll be talking about a little bit later today called As of Right, the Ontario government. We talked about it at our strategic planning session. The government is pursuing As of Right. There was a bit of news about it over the summer about inducting a few more professions into that legislation, and we're being considered for it. And it would sort of give more expedited pathway for those who are already licensed in another jurisdiction to start practicing here in Ontario, as long as they meet certain requirements. So we are working with the Ontario government, giving feedback and waiting for a final version of that legislation. The other thing is, as we talked about the refresher program today, again, for people who have been out of the profession over 3 years, we're trying to find smooth ways of them re-entering the profession, recognizing that not everyone is rusty or very rusty. So, we've got those pathways for those who have been out of practice for, say, under 3 years or under 5 years, and those over, so that we're kind of using the appropriate tool for the appropriate situation. If you need a light brush up, that exists now. If you need a more extensive brush up, that also exists. So again, these are ways that we're trying to reduce barriers. We're going to pop over to 222, increase the use of right touch principles in decision making. So in 2025, we have a right touch training administered by External Legal, and we have provided that training to the ICR and the Quality Assurance Committee in helping them render their decisions with the appropriate amount of regulatory intervention. 223, ensuring technology is being effectively leveraged to make college processes more efficient and easy to navigate. To that effect, we're constantly investing in the database, trying to make it more sort of user-friendly. Initiatives for 2025 included a version 2. Last year we for the first time launched online applications. Before, applicants would have to do an extensive paper application. So we launched our first time online application last summer. We ran it for a year, checked for any little bugs or sort of deficiencies, and have launched version 2 this fall. Again, we took input from people who've gone through the process and things, and this both improves the applicant's experience as well as reducing staff processing time, so that we have a quicker turnaround on these applications. Small stuff, we're working on the renewal season starts October 31st. So we're working on building out little changes and things for this year's renewal cycle. 232, creating additional continuing education resources on general practice areas. You will see listed in the far right column, the things that we've been doing. One of the things that I think was kind of fun this year is we're constantly going to different cities along with the association on their road trip or road show. And one thing that we tried in Sudbury this year, because the group was a bit more of an intimate size, is we gave our regular presentation and then we had an additional hour of sort of a peer circle where the practice advisor on staff, Peggy, and myself basically came up with a number of practice scenarios and basically put people in round tables and assigned various practice advice scenarios and had them kind of report back to us. And then we discussed it as a group where things stood. And I think it was very engaging. So it's hard to do at the big Toronto shows where there's 300 to 500 people, but London is coming up in October, so we'll probably do the same approach there as well. And we'll probably start doing that maybe even in Ottawa. And I think it was engaging, it was eye-opening. It gives us a lot of insight into how registrants are thinking, so we can better improve our communication. So I think it's going in the right direction. Under 233, increasing opportunities for registrant engagement in education, you'll see that we are always busy, especially in the fall, but throughout the year, we're engaging our registrants, and it outlines sort of the number of events we go to. So, we go to in-person events as far as continuing education presentations. We do webinars where needed. So, we've done 2 already on allyship. Student engagement wise, we give presentations to the various schools when invited. So recently we did a presentation at La Cité in Ottawa. Sometimes we go in person if the schools are local. Sometimes we do them remote. And registrant consultations, we've done quite a few this year because we were preparing for our strategic planning cycle. So we've had probably, I think we've done 2 focus groups in 2025, and we've done 4 consultations. So, topics that we consult on, we consulted on the life membership designation, the strategic planning engagement, the refresher program, and the standards of practice. So pretty much anything we're working on, we reach out and get registrant input and feedback, including, follow-ups of did we get it right? So you'll see in your table all the places that we're going. On page 32, we're hitting Toronto twice, Sudbury, Ottawa, London, and Toronto once again. So we're busy and we're out there. Goal 3, continue to streamline board governance in accordance with provincial and Canadian global best practices. We had a strategic planning session today before the board meeting started, and we talked about the board self-evaluation and the fact that our college is probably one of the first to actually do peer assessments of each other. And that is another governance best practice. And so, I think the college continues to strive and meet that strategic goal. So I think those are the big highlights since the last report. There's a lot in the table, as I said, because we're nearing the end of it. And pretty much we've hit all our markers. In the interest of time, I'm actually just going to turn it back to our chair and see if there's any questions arising from this report.
Thank you, Fazal. Stephen.
Just one word. Thank you very much for you and your staff for doing all this work. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you to the board for giving us the governance framework to be able to go out and be creative, and allowing us to have the budget to do some of these creative things. It's enjoyable for the staff to interact and put a face to the name of our registrants. It's great for us to understand what they're thinking so that we can make the appropriate educational information available to them. So we appreciate the support.
Okay. Anybody else with questions at all for our registrar? So this is one of those ones where we need 2 motions, okay? So I'm gonna hear from pretty much everybody, considering there's only so many of us on this call. So I need somebody to make the motion that the board approve the registrar's interpretation of the policy was reasonable. Regina, you'll be my first. Omar, you'll be my second. All in favor? Fantastic. And we're not done yet. Now I need someone to make the motion that the board agrees that the registrar CEO complied with the policy. Tanya, you'll be my first. Stephen, you'll be my second. All in favor? Right. Perfect. That passes. So being cognizant of time, we are now at the lunch hour. Can we table the rest, Fazal, until we come back from lunch? Or do you want to continue
Happy
as a
to.
board? What do you guys want to do? We're good with the tabling? Okay.
Okay.
So let's do an hour. We'll put a timer up. Please remember to mute yourselves and shut down your videos. Karen, I'm stealing your job again. Apologies for that. And we'll see everybody after lunch. And go.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a nice lunch. We are going to pick up right where we left off with the monitoring reports. And this time, Fazal will be speaking to the Human Resources and Relations and Policy Monitoring Report.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. Everyone's back, I'm hoping. Okay. Well, I'll get cracking anyways. I don't see the cameras on for everybody. Okay, this monitor report covers the period between October 2023 and September 2025. It's the Human Resource and Relations Monitoring Report. So a couple of the high-level policy requirements, employee relations, to sort of interpret and meet that. One of the core fundamentals is we operate with a written human resource policy and procedures handbook that's consistent with government regulations, human resource standards, and the values of the college. As far as connecting with the staff, we have regular one-on-one check-ins with staff. We use anonymous surveys and regular staff meetings. As well, on a weekly basis, we have in-person meetings with each of the departments to connect with the team. We try to promote a positive and equitable and supportive environment that values the contributions of all our staff by regularly circulating organization-wide emails, congratulating staff on achievement of goals. As well, we actually budget in the staffing line funds set aside to make sure that our individual directors are able to reward and celebrate successes of the department throughout the years with small little events to make sure that there's sort of camaraderie and fellowship built throughout the year. We allocate also in the budget funds towards staff education and development, whether it be general staff trainings that we can enroll our team into, department-specific training, or even individual staff going on and doing continuing education courses or certifications. As well, to contribute to some of the mental health challenges that sometimes happen from environments that are high stress. Sometimes interactions can be challenging for certain departments with external stakeholders. We do have training around having difficult conversations and managing conflicts. So we try to do that all in the space of trying to take care of the team. Another aspect of the policy is employee compensation. We always strive to have a reasonable compensation package that is equitable and competitive with other colleges in the space so that we can recruit the right people and retain the right staff. Staff packages include a comprehensive benefits package that has got equitable access to health and wellness benefits for all our staff. Staff performance reviews are done once a year. Feedback is given throughout the year, but there's a formal process every year to connect with our staff. This year in 2025, following a review of our benefits program, the college basically interviewed a few providers and signed on to a new program with a new benefits provider that was able to enhance the coverage package that our staff is getting, and at the same time come in at a reduced cost to save the college money overall. The total amount budgeted for salary and compensation is reviewed by the Finance Committee and ultimately approved by the board on an annual basis. As far as hiring practices goes, we basically have the sort of a regimented process. We mostly do our hiring in-house with the use of our HR officer in the office. We ensure that candidates for employment are evaluated through interview questions and assessments that relate to their ability to take on the responsibilities of the role through the interview questions. Those interview questions are vetted from a third-party recruitment firm and further reviewed by a DEI consultant. Questions are fair and relevant to their duties. In some circumstances where the role is a little bit more critical, the college will engage a third party to do the recruitment for us and make sure that the process is fair and equitable and free of bias. All prospects undergo the same screening process, which is about 1 to 2 interview rounds with the HR specialist, with their direct manager, and the deputy registrar or registrar. As far as the registrar's CEO compensation, any adjustments made to the registrar's compensation are done through the performance evaluation subcommittee appointed by the board in accordance with the registrar's CEO engagement and compensation policy. So happy to take any questions on that.
I'm looking for hands. There we go, Steve.
Yeah, Fazelle. Now,
Yes, sir.
my question is not to get into the day-to-day operations of the staff. However, given the pressure by the government to bring back their employees full-time and the financial institutions in Toronto to bring back their employees full-time, do you feel the pressure to bring have staff into the office, or can we still have that flexibility?
So, we think about this constantly and looking at what everyone's doing around us. Quite frankly, I think the arrangement that we have right now with the staff coming in 2 days, the same 2 days back to back, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I think is yielding results as far as creating an opportunity to collaborate between departments, creating the opportunity for Amy and I to connect with all levels of the staff, including coordinators, senior coordinators, managers, and directors. It's creating enough opportunity for staff to have one-to-one meetings. So I think we're achieving all of that part. The onboarding goes better when we have a couple of days for a bit of in-person. But at the same time, productivity, everybody gets their work done, regardless of where they're located. And I don't really subscribe to having people come in on random days just to check a box and have some people in the office sitting on a laptop Zooming somebody who's at home. So that's why we've gone to the model of 2 specific back-to-back days. And on the one day, the Thursday, we have the College of Respiratory Therapists subleasing space from us. And so I haven't really seen a need to bring people in further in person. I certainly don't want to check a box just to say that, well, they're doing it, so we'll do it, I guess. It has to have a purpose in my mind. And I think we're striking the balance between productivity and collaboration and enough face time. So my gut instinct initially is really not to increase that. Staff know that from time to time, for instance, we're having a board meeting or something, we'll come in person to support those kind of things or certain trainings. So the staff are flexible that way, but I think we're kind of getting all the productivity we need and all the face time that we need with the current arrangement.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think this goes perfect with staff enhancement and retention of staff. And yeah, I just think it's working perfect, and to keep on doing it.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for the question.
Right, other questions or any concerns? I'm not seeing any hands, so I think we can go to the motion.
All right. So again, another 2-parter. Could somebody make the motion that the board approve that the registrar's interpretation of the policy was reasonable, please? I'll go with Stephen, seconder Gregina. Thank you very much. All in favor? Passes. Fantastic. And the second part of it, can I get somebody to make the motion that the board agrees that the registrar CEO complied with the policy, please? We'll go with Carlo, and we'll have Mark. We'll get seconding it. All in favor? Fantastic. All right. And I think, Fazal, you're up for one more?
I'm up for 2 more, but I might.
Who's counting?
Okay. So if it's okay, I'll move on to the communications and support monitoring report. So as a former board member myself, I understand the importance of having the right information in front of me to make decisions and to have a clear ask with the right amount of information and background. So to that end, using that lens, when it comes to providing the board with adequate information to support decision-making, the college admin staff is very big on making sure that we do the appropriate and extensive environmental scans to see what other colleges are doing in the same space, what other organizations are doing sort of provincially and nationally. And we also seek out all types of perspectives. So significant efforts were especially made this year as we're doing our strategic planning, and we're planning for 3 years, that we engaged as many voices as possible through things like interviews and focus groups and surveys, so that we could bring you as much information as possible. We tend to look at internally to staff to see if they're flagging any concerns on the horizon and bring that information to you as well. So that is a big focus of us, making sure you've got the right information. Topics like the refresher program, the life member designation, election reforms, and inactive class eligibility. We brought you information all sought through surveys that were promoted on social media, our website, as well as email blasts. So hopefully that brought you the information you needed to make your decisions. The next aspect of the policy, the CEO will provide monitoring data that required by the board in a timely fashion and an timely and understandable fashion. That's what we're doing right now. Monitoring reports are provided in accordance with the schedule that's been set by this board. In total, 18 reports were delivered during the last cycle. At the same time, no additional monitoring requests were requested by the board during this period. And committee templates have been updated as well since about 2023. You'll see sort of a graphic dashboard on these committee reports. We know you have a lot of reading in your material package, and what we're trying to do is highlight in your committee reports graphically some important things, almost like the gauges of a car, so you know what the fuel situation is and where we're trending for things like registration, enrollment, things like that. So you as a board member can be highlighted to certain things, compare them from meeting to meeting, and then ask the appropriate questions. The CEO will advise the board about any actual or anticipated non-compliance with strategic outcomes or operational boundaries. That again is what the monitoring reports are for. Up till now, there have been no instances of non-compliance to report to during this period. The CEO will advise the board about media coverage, threatened or pending lawsuits, material changes, or events, including executive personnel. So updates are to be provided in a method appropriate to the urgency, sensitivity, and significance of the matter. To that end, the board is typically apprised by email of any significant updates or issues prior to any general communications being sent out to the registrants. I'm a big believer in making sure that you're never surprised, so I always might want to make sure you've the heads up before the general registrant base knows. The board has been updated on all staffing and board and committee member changes that have occurred during the last reporting period via email or in my quarterly registrar's reports. The CEO will advise the board when it's not in compliance with its own governance policies. I'm happy to say there are no instances of non-compliance with governance policies during this monitoring period. The CEO will not present information in an overly complex way or in a way that fails to differentiate between board decision-making, monitoring reports, or information. So that's a big push on our end, is to be very plain language. So board materials are reviewed to ensure that they are clear and relational and that their purpose is clearly defined. So all the board meeting briefing notes that you get in your packages are reviewed by several senior staff members. Amy, myself, for sure, are looking at briefing notes that are brought by all the directors. So there's multiple eyes on them. Your briefing notes have a checkbox on them to indicate to you if they're for information only or action is required. The admin team is constantly taking training and writing in plain language and providing a balance of background information so that you've got the right context without being overly dense. The staff is actually doing a joint plain language seminar coming up November 10th, I believe, with another partner of ours. The CEO will provide the board and its directors with communications and administrative support. Administrative support is provided by the executive office. Typically myself, Carolyn, Amy are there to support you where needed. The finance office. The board is notified in advance of any significant registering communications, as I said before. The board chair and the vice chair are prepared in advance of all board meetings and external events. On a committee level, our directors and managers meet with the committee chair to go over the agenda so that you're best prepared for success. The CEO will deal with the board as a whole, except when fulfilling individual requests for information, responding directly to director inquiries. So we typically, as good governance, try to make sure that there's no sidebar conversations or anything like that happening. Information is shared with the board at large. I try to make sure that Derek is in the loop as to what's going on. But at the same time, Derek is a big supporter, and I am, of making sure that there are no small conversations that are happening off table, and that the board is always part and in the loop. To that effect, we also send out surveys to the entire board to get your input and feedback after each of the board meetings and training sessions. So we act as a collective, and we model that behavior. Finally, the CEO will provide consent agendas for anything delegated to the CEO. So all the agendas are reviewed by the chair and executive committee, including consent items. Typically, the only consent items are the committee reports on your agenda, and we've been approving them by omnibus motion. And that is this monitoring report. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Fazal? I'm not seeing any hands.
All righty.
Go ahead, Derek.
Thank you, Fazal, and thank you, Karen. I'd like someone to make can I have somebody make the motion that the board approve the registrar's interpretation of the policy was reasonable? Omar, seconder, Tanya, all in favor? Fantastic, good. And the second motion that goes with it, that somebody make the motion that the board agrees that the registrar CEO complied with the policy. Paul, thank you. Seconder Alicia, thank you. All in favor? Perfect. All right. And Fazal.
Okay, last monitoring report, much shorter. This is technology and cybersecurity. Will be a bit of a theme today. So this report was due, the last one was from October 2024 to September 2025. This one is basically going forward. So taking steps, one of the first policy requirements is to take steps to ensure that we have adequate technology in place to permit the college to perform its protection mandate. So to that end, hardware is regularly maintained and replaced as it nears the end of its warranty period, in order to make sure we have no unnecessary interruptions to operations. Budgetary needs for technology are reviewed by the Finance Committee annually and brought to the board for approval. In 2025, we have replaced about 29% of our existing computer hardware as warranties were running out. And also compatibility is there for different operating softwares and things like that. The other requirement, regularly reviewing the college's data and technology plan to identify areas for improvement. The college regularly reviews the college's data and technology plan with our executive strategist of the college's IT provider. This is sort of a yearly occurrence. During these meetings, we talk about any upgrades that are needed to our hardware infrastructure or our software. If there are any new softwares or programs such as multi-factor authentication and things that are brought up that seem to be industry standard, we usually avail ourselves of that, making sure that we've got the right layers of cybersecurity in place to protect the college infrastructure. And then the last requirement of this policy is taking reasonable steps to safeguard the college's information technology infrastructure. Subcategory, minimizing the likelihood and impact of service disruptions or cybersecurity threats, and protecting the college's data against loss, damage, theft, or unauthorized collection or use. To that effect, the college staff are continually completing ongoing training modules which educate the user about cybersecurity threats such as phishing expeditions, and regularly testing their knowledge. Documents are backed up in shared folders and not residing locally on people's laptops or hard drives locally. So if a machine is compromised, that data is not lost. The college's IT provider regularly tests our cybersecurity monitoring tools to identify and correct any weaknesses. Financially, the college is protected from impacts of data lost, damage, theft, or unauthorized use through our insurance policy. And finally, hardware is regularly tracked and additional security features are enabled on our computers to be able to monitor if they're being physically moved out of Ontario. So we know during travel and everything where our machines are. So that is my report on cybersecurity.
Okay, any questions, comments?
I think Krishina's got her hand up.
Yep, there she is. You're on mute, Grishina. Grishina,
Sorry,
you're
Krishina,
muted.
can't hear you. Grishina, you're able to get yourself off mute?
You didn't hear me?
Now we
No,
can.
you were on mute the whole time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Fazal, I just want to tell you that excellent presentation and excellent job done by the college. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Krishina, for your comments.
Okay, any other questions? All right, Derek, take it away.
So, last of our two-parters, everybody. Can somebody please make the motion that the board approve the registrar's interpretation of the policy was reasonable? Grishina, thank you. Seconder, Tanya, thank you. All in favor? Fantastic. And second part, could somebody make the motion that the board agrees that the registrar or CEO complied with the policy? Mark, I'll take you as my first, and Alicia as my seconder. Thank you so much, everybody. All in favor? Can't forget that part. All right, and we're good.
Excellent. All right, thank you so much, Fazal.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to bring in Amy Stein, Deputy Registrar, to discuss the committee assignments.
Thank you, Karen. So as you know, we welcomed a new member to the board at this meeting, Mark Priddle. So welcome to you, Mark. And this is why we're bringing forward a request from the executive committee to assign Mark to some committees for the balance of this year. And the proposal that's been put forward is to assign Mark to the discipline committee and to the Inquiries, Complaints, and Reports Committee. So for some context, we typically assign all board and committee members of the college to the Discipline Committee. It's not a committee that sits as a committee per se, but panels are selected by the chair if and when it becomes necessary to hold a hearing. And then the Inquiries, Complaints, and Reports Committee does have a vacancy left following the end of another board member's term, Peggy Judge. So the proposal is to include Mark on the committee for the rest of the year. So back over to you, Karen.
Yeah, any questions? I don't think so. So Derek, you can request your motion.
Perfect. Excellent. And Mark, I think it'll be a good opportunity for you to get your feet wet and see what you think and get an idea of the process.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, can I have somebody make the motion to recommend that the board approve the proposed committee assignments? Alicia, and seconder will be Steve. All in favor? Thank you so much.
Okay.
It says we're going to lunch, but I think we've already done that.
We have already done that. So instead, we are going to bring in our department spotlight. And this will be our professional conduct department, and I'll have Fazal give them an intro.
Thank you. Okay, so at every board meeting, we try to spotlight one of the college departments so that the board can get an idea of who's on the team and what goes on sort of on a day-to-day basis, possibly even maybe gain some interest in being on that committee in the following year. Amy will be talking to you about committee selections later in the day. So on deck today are the department, the professional conduct department, and they will be talking, aside from the day-to-day operations, they'll be focusing a lot on the UAP, or Unauthorized Practice Program, which was a big cornerstone of our 2023 to 2025 strategic plan for the college. And so they're going to be sharing with you some interesting learnings and insights and things over the last year, the last couple of years. and we'll also be filling you in a little bit on just the regular intake of complaints. So I don't want to take too much time so we can run on time. So Raj, I'm going to turn it over to your team and take it from there.
Thanks, Azal. Hello, everyone. My name is Raj Batty, and I'm the Director of Professional Conduct. I'm supported by Tertia van Jaarsveld, Senior Coordinator, and Maria Bigos, Investigator. We support the Inquiries, Complaints, and Reports, the Inquiries, Complaints, Reports Committee and the Discipline Committee. We are speaking to you today to give you a bit of insight into professional conduct and the work we continue to do. Some of the areas we will discuss today are inquiries, complaints, discipline, and the Unauthorized Practice Initiative. I will now turn it over to Tertia.
Thank you, Raj. I would like to take a few moments to speak about an important aspect of our work at the college, how we manage public inquiries, and the impact this has on our regulatory effectiveness. Each year, the college receives a wide range of inquiries. The majority of these come to us through phone calls and emails, and they cover anything from can an optician charge me for my pupillary distance measurement to questions like why are non-opticians allowed to sell colored contact lenses, a particularly popular question around Halloween. While these inquiries may seem routine, they are a vital part of our public engagement. According to ministry standards, we are expected to respond within 2 business days, a benchmark we take seriously and consistently meet. When the nature of the inquiry is low in severity, our goal is to resolve it promptly and informally. We aim to provide clear answers and practical solutions before the matter escalates into a formal complaint. Common examples include concerns about communication with the registrant, failure to provide PD measurements, or access to health records. This approach has proven to be highly effective. It allows both members of the public and opticians to address concerns collaboratively without the need for formal proceedings. Let me share a recent example. Earlier this year, we received an inquiry from an individual who was unable to obtain their health records from their optician. With the individual's consent, we contacted the optician directly. By reminding the optician of their professional obligations and the standards of practice, the records were promptly released. The issue was resolved satisfactorily and without the need to initiate a formal complaint. Of course, not all inquiries fall within the college's jurisdiction. I'd like to highlight 2 such examples. The first involved a question about harmonized sales tax, or HST, being applied to frames. The individual wanted to know whether it was appropriate for a store to charge HST on frames. After consulting with the team, we confirmed that under current guidelines, HST may be applied when frames are sold alone. However, if prescription lenses are included, HST should not be charged. We explained this to the individual and clarified that taxation policies fall under the jurisdiction of the Canada Revenue Agency. We further explained that while the college can help clarify general practices, it is ultimately the responsibility of individual stores to ensure compliance with CRA regulations. Although we could not resolve the concern directly, we were able to provide sound advice and guidance. Another common inquiry involves optometrists. Rather than simply informing the complainant that we cannot proceed, we take proactive steps to assist. We verify the optometrist registration status through the College of Optometrists public register. With the complainant's permission, we then forward the matter to the College of Optometrists and include the complainant in the correspondence. This approach has helped us build strong professional relationships with other regulators, including the College of Optometrists and, more recently, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. These partnerships are essential as we continue to engage in collaborative coalitions and share best practices across the sector. I want to emphasize that every inquiry, no matter how small, represents an opportunity to educate, to intervene early, and to build trust. And through our commitment to timely, thoughtful responses, we continue to uphold the standards of our profession and serve the public interest.
The inquiries Tertia discussed can sometimes lead to a formal complaint and can vary in nature The main concern that has been consistent over the years has been related to professionalism. This could be anything from behavior and language used with a patient to willingness to troubleshoot a problem to poor communication skills. Concerns of this nature consistently make up about 80 to 90% of our complaints each year. Another reoccurring concern is related to dispensing eyewear, which can include eyewear that's been made incorrectly, failure to counsel the patient on what is being purchased and dispensed, or the failure to verify lenses and fitting or adapting the lenses to the patient. One trend we have seen this year is that the committee has identified record keeping as a concern when reviewing investigations. This could entail concerns related to the quality of the records themselves, missing documentation, or a failure to record certain information. This is consistent with the trends seen in QA this year. So we will take this as an opportunity to work collaboratively with QA at the upcoming CE provider meeting to generate areas for our registrants to learn and correct this issue. Our team closely reviews each file to ensure the investigation is complete before providing it to the committee for their review. This includes collecting information and documentation and sharing it with the parties for their response. Each file can vary in size depending on factors like patient records or witness interviews. Once the committee reviews the file and the outcome is determined, the team prepares the written decision and the accompanying letters that are then provided to the parties. We have closed 11 files so far this year. Of those 11, 3 were closed with no action. 5 matters were closed with the registrant receiving a written advice. This is when the committee believes the registrant's conduct and practice would benefit from advice in relation to the practice standards, code of ethics, or other legislation. 2 files were closed by the committee ordering an oral caution and specified continuing educational remedial program, also known as SCRP, respectively. These 2 dispositions are more serious in nature and are listed on the registrant's profile on the public register. An oral caution is in which the registrant is reprimanded and cautioned by the committee in person. A SCRP is an educational program ordered by the committee to help the registrant address specific areas of concern through a learning process. The final 2 matters were referred to the discipline committee earlier this year on specified allegations.
When the ICRC refers a matter to the discipline committee, several important steps must take place before the hearing can proceed. As a primary support person for this process, I play a key role in managing the administrative process that underpins these hearings. Some of these responsibilities include consulting with legal counsel, organizing the hearing itself, setting up virtual meetings, and managing exhibits and documentation to support a smooth and effective process. To date this year, the Discipline Committee has held 1 hearing involving allegations of insurance fraud. 2 additional matters have been referred and are currently ongoing, with hearings anticipated in the coming year. All committee members are required to complete discipline orientation workshops provided by the Health Profession Regulators of Ontario. I have completed this training myself and can attest to its effectiveness. Now, I would like to turn your attention to unauthorized practice. As you are aware, the Unauthorized Practice Program was introduced as part of the Board's 2023-2025 Strategic Plan. In 2023, the College implemented this new initiative with a clear goal in mind: to reduce the risk to patients caused by unauthorized practice. So what have we been up to, and how do we deal with unauthorized practice reports? Once we receive a completed reporting form, we conduct searches to locate information about the business, including identifying any registered opticians, optometrists, ophthalmologists, or other non-regulated staff members. We then reach out to the business owner or manager directly and discuss the concerns reported and explain what we need from them. From there, the file can take one of 2 streams. If the risk is considered low, an inquiry letter is sent requesting dispensary information and a signed compliance agreement. If the risk is considered to be high, a cease and desist letter is sent. We then assess the information received to verify details and decide whether the file can be closed, monitored further, or moved towards an elevated investigation, which can include a secret shop.
Since launching in fall of 2023, 47 investigations have been opened. 41 investigations have been closed due to satisfactory resolution or cooperation, and 6 remain active. Of the 41 closed, 10 files were closed due to not enough information received to proceed with an investigation. The remainder of the files resulted in providing education or guidance and/or receiving a signed compliance agreement from the business owners or managers. Finally, 2 files have resulted in escalated proceedings, such as legal proceedings in the court system. In 2025, 12 reports have been received so far, which 6 remain active. Although the number of reports received so far this year is less than the previous year, the action required for some of these files are much more complex. Therefore, we have had to expand our methods to ensure that we are applying the appropriate measures for each unique situation. As a result, beyond following our standard processes, we are dedicated to discussing, planning, and evaluating the risks and best courses of action before implementing new strategies. This careful approach ensures that the strategies we do execute are both effective and appropriate for each situation.
As the primary person responsible for the UAP or unauthorized practice here at the college, I'm happy to now share a couple of examples of feel-good stories, or as I like to refer to them as success stories. I will now start by sharing the first example, which involves a report received from a registered optician about a non-optical store selling prescription lenses. The reporter advised that their patient was unhappy with progressive lenses purchased from the store in question. The patient also confirmed that no optician had been present during the fitting or dispensing. Our initial searches confirmed that indeed no opticians, optometrists, or ophthalmologists were connected to this business, and therefore we agreed to immediately speak with the store owner about these reported concerns and to obtain information about who was responsible for dispensing or possible delegation. These conversations with the owner revealed that the frames sold at the store were supplied by a known company and fitted with prescription lenses through remote delegation by a registered optician that worked for that company. And after subsequent discussions with the optician involved and the CEO of the company, it became clear that there was an apparent misunderstanding about remote delegation. Considering this and the apparent risk to the public, both verbal and written communications were issued to all parties involved, combining education with a clear cease and desist directive for all activities contravening the Opticianry Act and the Regulated Health Professions Act. I will now move on to our second and final example. Oh, sorry. And so let me just backtrack a little bit. So after the information was shared about the contravention of the Opticianry Act and Regulated Health Profession Act, the college did receive confirmation from all parties involved that prescription eyewear sales, measurements, and dispensing at the store in question had ceased. And although the college was satisfied with this outcome, we still agreed to follow up in the future to ensure compliance is being maintained, which we believe to be a clear outcome of the right touch approach leading to a successful resolution. I can now move on to sharing our next and final example. This particular example relates to a matter in which the college received an anonymous letter describing an unregistered person dispensing eyewear. Following our initial searches, we learned that the store did not employ any opticians. However, the store did employ 1 optometrist and 2 non-registered individuals. And as such, we reached out to the store owner to obtain additional information, including information about the dispensary, and we also requested that the store owner provide a signed compliance letter. And upon receipt of this requested information, we noted that the owner now named a second optometrist and stated that both optometrists were taking responsibility for the dispensing. Now, since part of our protocol is to verify all information that is provided, we spoke with both optometrists. However, each optometrist individually confirmed that they worked very limited hours at the store in question and that they did not take responsibility for any opticianry tasks or supervision of the staff. And further, one optometrist even shared that they thought the owner was an optician. Now, based on this information, our findings, the college engaged an external investigator who conducted a covert investigation and confirmed the concern after being dispensed eyeglasses directly by the owner of the store who is unregistered. With this evidence in hand and legal counsel's confirmation that we had sufficient grounds to proceed, the Executive Finance Committee now has approved us moving forward with an injunction. Now, the second and final example, we believe, is yet another demonstration of the right touch approach and one that ultimately led to the college pursuing legal action. So what does this mean for the UAP process going forward? Well, our goal will remain to keep strengthening this process, to expand education, and to uphold our mandate to reduce harm to the public. We will continue to reinforce our procedures and increase oversight of escalated unauthorized practice cases because we're committed to ongoing improvement and learning. And at the core, our central goal remains clear: protecting the public. And therefore, the college will stay committed to safeguarding the public and sending a clear message that unauthorized practice will be thoroughly pursued. We are not only addressing unauthorized practice, but we are also educating opticians about their professional obligations to report it. Protecting the public is a shared responsibility, and as such, we encourage not only the public, but also our own registrants to report any and all information they come across relating to unauthorized practice.
Professional Conduct is continually trying to improve our processes to ensure patient and public safety and that concerns are addressed appropriately, no matter the channels. Thank you all for listening, and we invite any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you all. Very informative presentation. I'm sure people know a lot more than they did before. So are there any questions from the floor? Comments? Steve.
Yeah, I just want to commend the staff and all members of both committees, Committee 1 and Committee 2, for the input that they're putting into each file this year. There's substantive information that comes to each committee member. They review it in length, and when they come to the committee meetings, everyone is well prepared. And the discussion that is taking place this year in particular amongst both committees, it's been absolutely fantastic to hear everyone's input and the resolutions that are coming out of it, because everyone is so well prepared. It's a great committee to sit on for anyone that wants to look at this. It's very inviting, and you really feel that you've accomplished something once you've sat on this committee.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any hands. So I think we can just thank the team very much again for their presentation, and we will move on to Fazal's delivery of the registrar's report.
Erin?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've moved back from your microphone or what, but you're getting a bit more challenging to hear. I don't know if anybody else has been noticing that.
Is this better, Derek?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know. I think Fazal is going to propose a little agenda tweak as well, just before he moves into his presentation. So go ahead.
Yes. I'm going to propose, in the interest of time, that like typically we do the committee reports by omnibus, but I'm actually going to suggest the same for the registrar's report. There's nothing incredibly urgent in there. I think everything's straightforward, just reporting. So happy to take any questions from that. But if everybody's okay with that, we'll just kind of move through them as a group. And I will say again, in the interest of time, we were going to speak to a few things, such as efforts that were taken over the last year about informing registrants about the pending revocation and inactive class, as well as highlighting some of the communications trends that we were coming across in the communications report. So I am going to basically really suggest to the board that maybe take a double look at your registration report and take a look at the communications report. It's got some amazing graphics and trends in there. So do take a deeper dive when you get a chance if you already haven't. But I'm going to put a pin in any sort of in-depth coverage of those because you've got the information at hand. So, Mr. Chair, if you're okay with it, calling for motions to accept the reports as presented in the package.
Yeah, I mean, as to the board, I mean, everybody's had an opportunity to review it, and it was all very comprehensive and thorough. So I see where you're saying for sure that we can continue with our omnibus package and do it that way. So with that in mind, Mark, this is a little bit different in the fact that we quite often take all of these things as a big unit and kind of pass them together rather than take the time to go through motion by motion by motion, just so you have an idea of that process.
Don't make sense.
Perfect. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and call for a motion to approve the registrar's report, committee reports, and communications report as presented. Grzina will make that motion for me. Can I have a seconder of that? Mark, I'll take you as my seconder. All in favor? Perfect. And that passes. Thank you so much, everybody. And all right, on to the, actually, I think that's on to the end of that, is it not?
It is, yes. You can now move to adjourn.
All righty. So that's going to close out our meeting. So I'm going to have somebody make a motion to adjourn the meeting itself. Omar and Steve will be my seconder. All in favor? Good. Thank you very, very much. And we'll end the live stream.